Well, welcome to my favorite place to process, think, talk to people, listen to music, explore. Welcome to my car. So today we are going to be talking about things that we need to grow. And I hope that the audio works out well enough in the car, but I figured this was just the most appropriate place to include you guys in. So things that we need to grow. What I love about these topics that we're discussing are how much they overlap with each other and how we end up having conversations that aren't exactly the same, but definitely are revolving around similar answers and similar things. Things that we need to grow, the very first and foremost is that we need God. We need God in order to grow. Why do we need God? Man, I feel like that almost should be one of the questions, but feel free to discuss it, but it's not one of the questions. But there's so many aspects of why we need God. I was thinking about this and I was thinking, not only does it just kind of make sense that throughout life and circumstances and difficulties and the ups and downs, isn't it just nice to have the creator of the universe who's in charge of everything in your corner? I mean, that's where my mind goes. At the same time, I was thinking, that doesn't always fit for everybody. I'm sure there's different ways you can start wording of why we need God. But the thing that really came to my mind that I thought was more appropriate was we need God because He wants you. He wants a relationship with you. He wants to know you. He wants to know what's going on. He wants to be a part of your growth process. He desires to be there with you, to work through this stuff, to grow in the things that are difficult. I mean, I could go on and on about that. But I felt like that's the one thing that God really wanted to say, was that when we ask the question of God's what we need in order to grow and why do we need God, that the basic answer is because He wants you. And I feel like that could be fleshed out a lot, but I don't want to take up too much of the time. The next thing that I was thinking about that we need in order to grow is we need each other. We need friends. I was having some good discussions with my kids recently about being able to listen and talk to God and how important that is. And I remember growing up, for me, one of the biggest things in trying to grow as a believer was that it was really difficult to do that only talking to God. And I always used to say I need God with skin on. That was my big thing. But I've appreciated that through these conversations, the truth of the fact that God has made us to where we need each other. We can't survive alone. That's why. That's why we need each other. So we need friends. We need friends to be able to just process stuff with and go through things together. Third thing that we need to grow. And this is probably a more interesting one coming from me, because it's probably the biggest area for me. In order to grow, we need a plan. I don't do this one well, although I am a planner. I think because more often than not, this is the closest aspect of needing to do something, or for lack of a better word, homework. But not just homework. You need a plan to be able to know where you're going. I love a good adventure. I love driving around, and my favorite times have been when I have the most amount of time, no time limit, and no specific direction. I love driving for the sake of driving and not caring where I'm going. But in order to grow, why do we need a plan? We need a plan so we can know where we're going. I know that it's not always the case for everybody, but being able to have some mile markers, I believe that's from a previous discussion that we've had, in order to know how far you've come, in order to know how far you have to go. And I feel like that aspect, it's definitely the biggest one for me that I've had to grow in. It's been helpful to have friends. I would encourage you in that. So in order to grow, we need God. And in order to grow, we need each other. And in order to grow, we need a plan. And as I've been thinking through that, there's really only two questions that I have for you guys to process. And the first one is kind of all-encompassing of all three of those areas. Let's see if I can word this well. What do you need in order to start? Often when we're talking about growing, we know what we need to do. If we're going to become an engineer, we know we need to go to school and take engineering classes. We often know we need the information and the training and all the different things in order to reach that point of growing. But often we need something to start the process, somebody to say something, encourage us, investment, something to start it. What do you need in order to start growing in any three of these areas? And then the last question I have for you is, I believe it'll make sense. I'll do my best here. What do you need in order to start getting together with people outside of our circle times where we're actually getting together? I think it's great we get together. I love it. I love having conversations around those times. But I was thinking about this in an aspect of growing, and in all three of these areas specifically, getting together outside of our groups is a huge part of our growth. And I wanted to ask you to not only answer, but then discuss in our groups, what do you need in order to meet with somebody else outside of our circle groups? So, as always, I hope that made sense. And I am super excited for our discussions that we're going to be having. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you later.